PRO company called BMI in Austin. Shout out BMI.
My BNI
Which-
is not very good.
BMI. Absolutely.
How much of, Texas and agriculture and rodeo do you think influences the type of music you write?
Dude, everything. I mean, all of it. Like, go drive I-10. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
From Alpine to San Marcos, Texas, right? Go do that drive 100 times a year, more than that. You know what I mean? You're going to see some beautiful country. You're going to see different ways people do agriculture. You know what I mean? And you do that from gig to gig, from rodeo to rodeo, and you're driving through people's lives. You know what I mean? Their livelihood of what they do, and it's very inspiring. And at least for me, I write a lot of songs behind the front windshield. You know what I mean? It's just...
Who have you written songs with, and who would be your favorite name that you started writing songs with?
So there's a couple guys through just networking, Nashville stuff, also Texas guys that I love to write with. Like, they get it. They get what I'm trying to do, the cowboy thing, but also keep it country. You know what I mean? Not like, I'm a cowboy, but not also like, I'm a farmer. It's like you kind of got to play the both things and then just be honest about it, because, I did rodeo and stuff, and I'm not saying I'm like some crazy cowboy dude or whatever, but did rodeo for a long time, and I like to tell people that stuff. That's just what I like to do.
And you day worked in college.
Yeah.
You did all that. Yeah.
That's true. To pay for rodeo entry fees.
Yeah.
Stupid. Losing. But anyways, and some of my favorite guys to write with. That's what we were talking about. Josh Grider, obviously, the man that basically taught me how to take all these ideas and things and form them into a song, right? Definitely him. There's a guy by the name of Mitch Oglesby who lives outside of Nashville, but he's from Georgia, but he's a farmer, like he lives on the farm, runs crops, does that whole thing. And then he'll show up to a riot, fresh off the tractor, dude, coming there in overalls or coming there, you know what I mean? Like, country dude. So he gets it. You know what I mean? Like, he understands that side of it. Mm-hmm. So also he loves rodeo and has a passion for cowboys and that whole side of things. You know what I mean? So I've written Good to Be a Cowboy with him. I've written some more songs that are coming in the future, quite a bit. And there's another fella. Let's see. A guy named Brandon Kinney, right? Really enjoy writing with him. He's from La Mesa, Texas. Lives in Nashville. Yep. Hit songwriter. Like, huge hits. Jason Aldean, which also Mitch Oglesby is also a hit writer as well. All kinds of stuff. And so anyways, those two guys outside of Josh, I really love to write with. And there's a bunch more that I'm missing, obviously.
Have you written any with Braxton, or you just wrote, like, he plays songs that you've written?
Man, we've probably written every song. It's always with Braxton, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he is a great writer and knows what his melody sense is super cool and unique. And I think that's what's separating him. Mm-hmm. Where he's finding his sound and stuff. It's awesome to watch. Also, we're really great friends. But yes, I've written probably 6 songs with Braxton Keith now at this point, and he's cutting a few on the next record. he's got a song called Blue, which his next record coming out is literally called Blue. So I have the title track on that that I wrote with him and Josh Greider at Josh's house in New Braunfels. Right. So for me, that's a big thing for me because I'm out of my first publishing deal in Nashville. Right. So I own the publishing and the writer share on that song. And it's my first song on a major labeled artist that's getting cut. So for me, it's like,
Now,
thank you, Lord.
Cody,
Yeah.
Cody
just
Johnson
kinda-
pulled one of your songs, right?
Yeah, he had a song called "Lovin' One" on hold for a while, and then, which is fine. It just didn't make the cut at the time, and so I went ahead and put it out myself because initially I wrote it for me, you know what I mean, and then I was like, this sounds like a Cody Johnson song. Maybe we should try pitching it to him, So we did a couple times, and it passed, and that's fine. And then I put it out on myself. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that song.
Now, you have been writing with Bubba Straight, right?
I have been writing with Bubba Straight. Met him in Bernie through a friend named Mitch Ballard, who runs a PRO company called BMI in Austin. Shout out BMI.
My BNI
Which-
is not very good.
BMI. BMI, the PRO, I know this is getting into it now, but basically they're a company that finds your streaming numbers, finds the money that you make from people listening, right? And they collect that, and you get a check in the mail, basically. And they kind of keep track of your songs, and you turn in your songs and who you wrote it with who, you know what I mean? And that puts it in the system. They run that. And so BMI opened up an Austin office in Austin, Texas. So anyways, he introduced us, was like, you guys should write. So we've been writing.
The country music, you always hear about Nashville and all that stuff. And you've been to Nashville a number of times. And you also hear that, there's a lot of music industry in Austin. What are the differences between the cultures in Nashville and Austin? And do the artists that live in those cities, do they have similar views on what they want to do as artists? How does that work? Because you always hear like, okay, Texas is where you want to be now.
Sure.
Austin is a thriving place for music.
Yeah.
What is the difference between those two cities and the cultures and the business aspect
Right.
of that?
So Austin, you're looking at, Austin's weird. It's got all kinds of stuff, but the music there is huge, but it's not, the predominant sound there is not country music.
Okay.
Right? Like if you go
That's
and
wild
you
for
line
me to
up a
think.
bunch of, right. But that's just how it is, I don't know if that's a LA influence or a California coming to Texas thing or whatever it is, I don't know. But it's kind of been that way for a while now. In Nashville, you walk down Broadway, right? They're playing country music. You know what I mean? Everywhere. You walk down 16th Avenue, right? It's all publishing houses for country music, typically. You know what I mean? Like 90% of them, I would say, is people are trying to write country songs in Nashville. And so the difference there, I think, is just, however, if it's California or wherever the outside influences are that have brought that kind of sound to Austin. And I think that's just why it's different.
So there's a clip that came out not too long ago of George Strait sitting there at the country music awards, and like you could just tell he is not. It's not what he grew up with, right?
Right.
And all the legends that he wrote with are gone.
Well, not yet.
But what are obviously country music has always changed.
Right.
What is the direction that country music is going?
Man, it's coming back.
It's coming back.
It's coming back. Guys like Zach Top, guys like Braxton Keith, guys like Jake Worthington.
I love Jake's sound.
Me too, man. He's awesome. They are bringing it back. But each in their own styles. You know what I mean? Like Zach Top sounds pretty close to straight out of the 90s. You know what I mean? Jake, similar, but his vocal is so Mark Chestnut. You know what I mean? And like just like
What do you think
that
about Coulter
character. Man, I think Coulter Wall's great. He has his thing, and it's awesome. He found a way to make it work, and that's what's the hardest thing to do in music is when you find your sound. First off, sticking to what works, you know, and then just continuing to rinse and repeat.
Because you're trying to capitalize off that, right? So you don't want to get off that highway that's paying.
Do you ever wish you wouldn't have taken a certain path in music?
In music?
Yeah. Like a style or a technique, or you listen to somebody, you're like, man, I should have stayed to what I like.
Sorta, but then I think about how pretty new and fresh I am, and I kind of give myself a little bit of a break because it's, pretty wild. You just kind of start doing it and go full on and go for it. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you're going for something and it doesn't work, it's like, okay, next thing. And then you just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You kind of find, and I think with the last project I put out and the next song's coming out, I'm starting to zone in on kind of what my sound is and kind of what I want to say and kind of my style,
Yeah.
Well,
but it takes a little bit, you know what I mean?
when we were in college or in those parts where we're just kicked back, and that's my favorite music that I ever listened to is just your acoustic by yourself strumming a guitar, and it's just so authentic. It just, man, it hits you to the bone.
Yeah.
And it's like that's what country is right there, is that you can feel it in your soul.
Yeah.
And I think that's what music in general, and we've kind of put so much noise in it.
Yeah.
And we've kind of lost the feel of your, like we were saying earlier, that's your painter's brush.
In the past, a lot of music you hear is, they're not being authentic. Some artists aren't being authentic to themselves, and they're just playing things that what people want to hear. They think what people want to hear. And to kind of piggyback off that topic and what you're saying, how a lot of that authenticity is coming back around, and you see that in TV culture, right? I think the reason people grasp and really go to watch the Yellowstone and like this new show Landman, right?
Yeah. I haven't seen that. Is that pretty good?
It's actually really good. Now, it's Hollywood in a sense, right?
Sure.
You're not everything's realistic that you're watching because they have to keep it going. They got to keep the viewer tied to it. But people like to see and hear different cultures, right? And the cool thing about Landman, well, it's filmed in Midland, Odessa. They got Fort Worth in there. Then they have artists on there, like they're playing music from Texas country artists that really, and like a lot of songs are tied. You almost hear songs and you're like, that's tied to a landscape. Like you can almost hear a song and be like, man, I feel like I'm listening to that in the hill country right now, or I feel like I'm hearing that in Alpine and way West Texas, or I'm in the like Flatland Cavalry. I hear a Flatland Cavalry song. I'm like, I'm in the South Plains right now, right? You kind of like, I hear a George Strait song and I'm like, I feel like I'm in a roping pen. We just ran
Texas.
25 steers through, and we're giving the horse a break, uncinching them, and we're just chilling.
Yeah, we should do this in the middle of a roping arena while people are running steers.
Yeah. I think that would be awesome. And
there's something iconic about it.
So
this gate just.
So
just some guy bucking bulls, and we're just sitting here doing a podcast where we're like, don't move. Like, what do they call it? You know what I'm saying? When they do that with the table and you have a full podcast.
You have red chair.
You gotta announce a very clean run here.
Yeah.
8 seconds.
So, I think a lot of people like that. I certainly do. And I think that's why some of those TV shows are really successful is because there's so much authenticity to them where you're like, yeah, I mean, some of the things you see on the show are like in Yellowstone, like
No
you know,
working pins. And
like they got a paneled arena in Montana set up, and they're like working yearlings and they're running them through the chute.
I mean, at
through
least
a
get a
roping pen.
set of portable working pins or something.
Yeah, so you can see through that, but at the end of the day, like people admire the culture of it, and I think music is coming around that way. And because of technology and social media, there's so many outlets to see that authenticity. And so while it can be overwhelming at times, it certainly opens a lot of doors and gives people insight. And it's kind of the same reason, like, while we're doing this podcast is, you know, in a way, we don't have a huge platform, but we have some kind of platform, and we have all these cool friends that are in different industries.
Yeah.
And Harrison always talked about it. Like, what are the risks of doing a podcast? Well, I think the only risk is paying for it, you know. But if it fails in 50 years, we can look back and be like, yeah, grandkid, you want to watch episode 7? It's pretty good. You know?
We had Gunnar Latham on. Yeah, he's
and this might be our 12th episode, actually.
Yeah.
But
I would also go to say that our political arena has changed, and I've seen such a lightened mood about not hurting somebody's feelings. Like, be who you want to be. Be true to yourself. Be the next person.
Even what you're saying, though, comes like from that's a liberal point of view. Like, that's a liberal mindset of, hey, don't stay on this path, right? Like, be authentic to yourself. Take the road less traveled, you know.
Yeah.
And so, but I look back at 10 years, right? I mean, 10 years ago, I was senior in high school, you know, and the development and growth, some good, some bad, right? You got to make mistakes along the way to point you in other directions, to lead you to things. I don't think we're at where Harrison and I are at where we're supposed to be yet.
No. I mean, I think that we have a lot of learning lessons that we haven't had yet. I mean, there's always a lesson every day, even if you don't realize it.
I mean, we're doing this, and I'm still, like, deep down in my gut, I'm like, I should be at the store right now, you know? I'm like, I should be doing that. But this kind of stuff is one of those, like, hey, you can't die with material assets. You can't die with things. Like, we're called to be servants of the Lord, and we're called to provide and be fishers of men and all those things.
There ain't no U-Hauls in heaven.
No.
I like that.
I wrote that song.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's I get the title of your song, but one of the lyrics is like something about, you know, big old boat, no time to fish.
Oh,
What's that
song called Everything I Had?
Yeah, Everything I Had. Yeah, I love that song. Yeah. I showed it to my mom. She keeps it on repeat. She's like, I just love this song. She's like, it just reminds me of.
I wish there was more songs on Spotify of yours. Like,
yeah, I've got 9, but I recorded 7 recently, 7 singles. So
when are you going to drop them?
January 1 will be, technically, the last song that I put out is called A Good One Does. And I wrote that based off of, it started out from that red Dodge that we talked about earlier. I mean, it's literally the cover photo, me on that dog, and it says Rodeo for Jesus, and that's the truck. Yeah, you know, that I did all this crazy stuff in. So it's a good truck.
Yeah. Will you? Sorry.
No, you're good. And so that was a couple months ago, and so that I'd recorded 7, so that was the first out of that batch. So starting January, it's probably going to be very beginning of January. I'm going to release a song a month almost for the year, if not maybe 2 in a month together, you know, whatever. But it's just like I said this the other day on a radio interview on Coke FM. I was like, it's kind of like having a fire, right? And you want it to go all night long, but you got to keep putting logs on the fire. You know what I mean? You got to keep it warm. You got to keep it hot. You know, strike while the iron's hot. You know, that thing. So that's kind of how I view it. And I figure, you know, this time next year, after 6 singles are out, we should do this again. And
Certainly.
maybe it'll be.
Well, you know, I was talking to Carlos Lopez yesterday or the day before, and I was like,
Comedian?
man, yeah, comedian. Yeah. And he came on the podcast, and he goes, man, I love being on there. Like, thank y'all for having me. I was like, man, honestly, you did more for us than we did for you. But
Well, that's how it goes.
and I was like, but every person that they'll call me, like people just call me and go, hey, I went to look up y'all's, you know, Facebook or y'all's company, and then you know Carlos Lopez popped up, and like I never listened to him before, and I started listening to him, and now I love him. Like this dude is freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
And so you know, any exposure is good exposure when it comes to trying to get your stuff out, and that's
Absolutely.
you know that's one thing. We're like, okay, well, what if we say the wrong thing on the podcast? What if we do this the wrong way? Like, how do we do it right? Ultimately, if you never try, well, we try to be authentic,
Sure,
but
yeah.
if you never try, then you'll never fail. And the worst thing to do is to never try, because we would never be here if we never would have tried a dream.
Yeah.
You would never be here if you didn't try a dream.
Yeah, I mean, think about it like this. Hell, I was thinking about it last night. You know, with all of the outlets we have available to us, you look back someday and you're like, why didn't I just try to do that?
Right.
You know, why?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, all this stuff is available to us.
And it really doesn't cost that much. You know, sometimes it's relatively inexpensive to a grand. You might have to go with something, but you know, like Sterling was saying, 20 years ago, think about it. 20 years ago, we didn't have an iPhone.
That's why I recently purchased some digital coin.
Oh Lord.
I got $500 in that. There's one on there that if it goes up a penny, I'm gonna be a millionaire.
Yes.
But you know, that's the thing is, 20 years ago, we didn't have the technology that we have now. And I think I was listening to Joe Rogan or one of those podcasts, and they were talking about the music industry. And it's like, we just had to travel around. Like you just show to show to show to show, and hopefully you got enough people that liked you. So if you blew up 20 years ago, congrats on you, because that's wild.
Sure, but also during that time, going and seeing a show live,
Right, that's true.
that was the thing to do. Like everybody went out. You know what I mean? We weren't doing this. You know what I mean? If you wanted to go see somebody play or see them, you know, you couldn't go on the internet and look at a video. You had to go buy a ticket, and then you went, and then it was fun, and then you bought a T-shirt after, and then you left the show. And then the next time you told all your buddies, when he comes back to town, we're going to go. And you brought 10 of your friends. And so that's the
changing landscape.
Yeah, that's...
And you probably
That's
heard
music
it from the radio, or you saw it in the paper.
Right.
You know, like that was the two intros. You know, now it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, you know,
TikTok.
or X.
When
you
people
know?
go...
Sorry, Elon.
When people go, how is the music business? How you doing? You know, how is it? And I'd start thinking about, well, I sold some tickets here. Oh, that was crappy here. Blah, 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 blah. And then I think what is actual reality in the music business right now is the fact that every single one of us, even if you're really in the music business and like play every day or not, or can grab a guitar and sing anything, right? We are all one TikTok away. Isn't that insane?
It is insane.
I mean, Samuel
when people
Barber,
ask me,
Jack
I'm like,
Top.
Yeah, we
I'm
joke
one
about it.
TikTok
So if
away,
we
man.
sell
Riley Green.
if we sell one skid steer off this podcast or from a TikTok or whatever, that pays for it for the entire year.
Yeah.
Like just that marketing expense to do that. You
So
know,
it's like, why not? You know?
Yeah.
But the other thing is, right, the other side of the business is going and meeting people in person and you know what I mean, and shaking hands and creating relationships.
Well,
you
we
have
were
to be likable.
And building a fan base. You do have to be likable and you have to be coachable.
Well, we were talking about
thing.
this in a sales meeting the other day, and there's a company, several big companies in our industry that are pushing for. You have to have so many phone calls, so many meetings. You have to have. They're almost going virtual, right? Like cover the masses, and they're losing this. Business is built on relationships, and when you're talking to 200 people a day and you're a telemarketer, there's not a relationship there. There's not a, hey, Gunnar, how can I do this? Or Gunnar calls me, Harrison, I need a tractor to plow my arena. Like, take care of me. There isn't that relationship.
Right.
And so, when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, relationships build your career.
Oh yeah.
And if you skip that part, you just won't have a career. You
I
might
think
have
you-
impressions.
I think, yeah,
Sure.
I kind of what you're saying. I think you could have short-term success, but not long-term.
Yeah.